think let's start. As more and more people join in, we can start in the meantime. So I formally welcome Tanya to this talk show. Thanks, Tanya, for taking out time in the first week of January, the first week of the year. We know that first week is always very hectic once you come from holiday. And I welcome everyone on the ProfitBoard investment talk, which we do very often, maybe couple of times in a month. And let me first introduce Tanya. So she founded her capital with the mission to empower women to become financially independent and to take control of her income. Her capital is a 15 million seed fund in Singapore, investing only female-founded scalable businesses, and that is across Southeast Asia. And I know why this is so important, because if we want to really empower women, we need to have more women in the executive and in the leadership role globally, not only a part of the world, but globally. And a very recent McKinsey report suggested that with women at the top, there are the likelihood of a company becoming profitable and scaling and going long is more than 25% vis-a-vis when a company is led by a man. Even then, only 18% of firms globally are led by women. And even if you talk about OECD countries, that's only 22%. So, and I think that's very disturbing and surprising, considering the role which women play otherwise globally and in our personal and family life. And that's where Tanya is playing such an important role globally in terms of helping women to raise capital, to empower them to become entrepreneurs. And with this, I request Tanya to give a brief intro about what she's trying to do and her background in terms of how she's helping women.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Great to be here this afternoon. I'm based in Singapore and launching her capital here with my business partner, who is a Singaporean, and I am originally from London and have been in Singapore for approximately 4 years. When I first arrived into Singapore from the UK, I had a background of working in international law firms in the UK and in Australia. And when I arrived in Singapore, I wanted to move towards supporting female founders and gender equality generally. I first got interested in this as a topic, not just because I'm a woman, but when I was working in one particular law firm in London, I ran a project on where all the women went, because you will see a sort of equal amount of female lawyers at the junior level and not at the senior level. So where were all the lawyers going? So I ran a project to understand what was happening with female career. And the findings of that really shocked me and stuck with me. So when I came to Singapore and started to make personal investments, I realized very quickly there was some serious inequality when it comes to venture capital. And so I teamed up with my business partner, Gail Wong, who was also a big advocate for financial empowerment for females. She comes from an investment banking background. She did over 10 years on Wall Street at Morgan Stanley. And the two of us seemed to make the perfect partnership. Gail was Singaporean and I was European. Gail was great at the detail and the due diligence and very methodical in her thinking. And I really enjoyed the relationships and building out our presence and making connections. So the writing was on the wall for us, and we came together and grew a team of around 40 self-funded female investors. And we invested into female founders across Southeast Asia, sector agnostically and intentionally so. And following that, we decided to launch as the institutionalized fund and that we are today. So we launched last year in the middle of this damn pandemic, and it's been somewhat challenging, but seeing a lot of great female talent in Asia. And we are, as you pointed out, a very early stage fund for female entrepreneurs, looking to back women, particularly those in consumer tech, we do some social impact investing, and we also invest into sort of general tech, I guess you could call it, education technology, HR tech, legal tech, and fintech. And we have a sort of special interest in female health as well, because it's a huge under-researched, underserved space. Women make up 51% of the population, so there's no reason why that should be the case. We are the majority after all. So yes, that's why we exist. Would you like any more detail about Her Capital? Or?
I think that's fine. We will talk about that specifically because I have more queries which I will ask you later. But Tanya, why Asia and why Singapore? I think you were in London and you moved to Singapore. Why Singapore and why Southeast Asia?
So I moved here for personal reasons.
Okay.
That's what originally brought me to Singapore. However, I'll be honest with you, I was largely driven by the weather because UK weather's terrible and I wanted slightly better weather. I say that and I'm sat here in Singapore in the pouring rain day after day because it's rainy season right now, but it was largely the weather amongst other things. And in terms of Singapore for the business, Singapore makes absolute sense for Her Capital because it is a huge financial hub for Asia. It attracts so much of the great female entrepreneurial talent from the region base themselves here. So although we're based here, we are much broader than Singapore. We see for every 5 companies we see in Singapore, most likely 3 are not founded by Singapore. So it's just a natural hub, financial hub, and ecosystem, for startups as well. So it's a great place for us to be. Outside of COVID, it's great geographically for traveling around and visiting portfolio companies, in Indonesia and Thailand and Vietnam. So fantastic location. We also focus a little bit on Australia, so very close to Australia. The only area we're not close to in Singapore, but we wouldn't be close in any part of Asia, would be to the US. We do some female health investing in the US. So yes, but COVID's preventing any of that travel anyway. So
yeah. COVID has prevented complete travel for all of us. So any interest which you have in India? Are you looking to invest in Indian companies also led by women, or you are focusing as of now only in Australia and other parts of and Singapore and other parts of Southeast Asia?
So for fund, we're on Fund 1, and Fund 1 we are purely Southeast Asia focused, with the carve outs in those. So Hong Kong, Australia, and some in the US, and it's really based on deal flow, what we've seen, and where we're seeing deals coming through to us. That said, I would say in the last 5 months or so, I've received an awful lot of connections in India, both from founders, from investors, and we completely appreciate that it is a huge market. That said, as a Singaporean and as a Brit, I'm not sure, and we don't currently have any Indian females in our team. I don't feel that we're necessarily equipped right now to take India by storm.
Oh, okay. So maybe we can provide you something for the room.
Exactly.
Yeah, so that's great. And let's talk about your investments. So you said that you have already backed around 40 entrepreneurs to date. So what has been your investment thesis in the sense that at what stage, I know you are very early stage investor, but at what stage do you invest at the idea stage, or do you want some traction and the MVP to be ready to really invest in?
Sorry, I'm not sure if it's my sound or your sound, but I'm having a little difficulty to understand. I think you asked what stage we invest in, and the stage we are investing in is we do anything from pre-seed, so very small tickets. So we will go in very, very early days, even with a ticket of $10,000, for example, with the view to very quickly sweep in and offer more capital. Typically, we come in at seed stage, so slightly later than that. So typically, we're coming in around the $200,000 mark. And we go up to Series A, which would take us up to around $2.5 million.
Okay. I was trying to resolve if there is any sound from my side. And do you also do a follow-up investments? What has been your thought process in terms of follow-up investment? Because I have spoken to so many investors, and they say that we want to back our startup to a point where they are at a Series A level. So do you do that, or what other things you do in terms of helping women entrepreneurs other than just the fundraise?
Okay, so yes, we definitely do follow-on funding, and if anybody is familiar with the data for female founders, which I could talk to you about until about Tuesday of next week, female founders find it, statistically speaking, it gets harder and harder for females to raise capital as they maneuver through the funding rounds, and the very small percentage of venture capital funding for females gets smaller and smaller. So it's very important to us to not just seed female founders and then send them on their merry way and fingers crossed and hope for the best. So what we try to do is a pre-seed investment, a seed investment, and then potentially a Series A investment. Most likely a co-investor. We wouldn't lead the round on the Series A, but that's sort of where we're at the moment with what we're investing in. There was another part to your question, sorry.
I'm saying in terms of what exactly you do in terms of helping women entrepreneurs, because yes, women would need more help in terms of connect, in terms of hiring the right people. So yeah. So I wanted you to. Yeah.
Sure. So before Gail and I ran Her Capital, we ran an angel network that I talked about earlier called Ladies Investment Club, or L.I.C. And that club was put together purely based on we were financially independent women coming together who wanted to offer more than just capital. And we find this with female investors generally. They do not want to throw their money at a financial advisor or any type of investment and just walk away and hope for the best. Typically, female investors want to have some kind of impact and influence over what their money is doing. And so we at Her Capital offer that to our LPs. So people that are investing into Her Capital have the opportunity where skills are aligned to support our portfolio companies. So one of the things we learned through the Ladies Investment Club is that women really care very deeply about how they can support founders. So we had 40 women in our angel network, and each and every one of them brought something to the table to offer our portfolio companies. So whether that was they come from a very senior role, in a senior marketing role, sales, financial, CFOs, we had lawyers, and we had doctors, and we literally tried to tick off, all the business areas, all the industry sectors, so that when we were investing into companies, we were able to sort of pull together a team that was able to support and advise the founder. So that was very much the ethos of Ladies Investment Club. And we're following that through into Her Capital. However, just to caveat that, we are not investing into women who need hand-holding. We're investing into women who are, experts in their sector, experts at whatever they're doing, and exceptional at and outstanding at execution. We are not expecting to provide hand-holding and advice on their color schemes, etc. Women, and I think this is often a misconception, is that women need extra education, women need extra help, extra mentoring, extra this, and often that isn't the case. And we speak to a number of institutions and other VCs, and they're always offering extra help to women, And yes, it's very true that we do tend to get very far from our networks. And so if you think about most venture capitalists are men, it's no surprise, therefore, that most of the people they invest into are people within their networks are also men. So there is definitely a gap when it comes to networks. So introductions and sharing of our connections is definitely something we facilitate at Her Capital, and a huge.
I think that's what I was referring to, because it's very difficult for them to get into the first break, to first conversation, get into the discussion with investors. As you rightly said, most of the VC firms globally are being led by men, and that's where you are creating a lot of value in this. Tanya, in terms of investment, so what is your methodology to choose a startup? What is the process? So do you run a class kind of thing where people can, so for a particular class, people can apply, and then you choose, or it's more of a ad hoc basis when anyone who want to raise capital during the year can approach your fund? What's the methodology?
So we don't have sort of windows where we accept decks, etc. We're not. I would say we're not that, probably not that sophisticated, but also not that advanced in our thinking yet. We receive decks all day, every day. I probably get 5 or 6 a day come in, and my business partner probably gets more, because she actually leads our deal, our investments, and I take the charge of our fundraise. So yes, we get quite a few decks coming in. Of course, we have special interests, as I mentioned to you, about what really floats our boat, and what we're really interested in investing in, and the teams has very in-depth knowledge in some of those areas that they talked about. So for us, obviously when it comes to selecting an investment, there's many different, it's very multifaceted. There isn't sort of one thing we're looking at, or criteria. So aside from the addressable market and the traction to date, and whether we believe that there's that this business is plugging a real need and a gap, one of the things that I really place a lot of importance upon, and the reason for that is that I've had great experience in doing this. When I have a really good feeling about the founder, and I can see that this founder is someone that I like and I want to work with, and I can see them growing a team and retaining a team, and they've got this passion and flair for entrepreneurship and for what they're doing, that goes a very long way in my book. For me, because we tend to invest very early on, so it's extremely hard to analyze a proposition based purely on numbers. A large part of it for me is about the founder.
You rightly said, because at the initial stage you don't have a lot of data about the business, and it's what we back the founder, because business models can change, but founders, if they hang in, that's what we need. So we need founders who are able to build team, who are able to understand and take it. In terms of other points of what, so I would really want you to talk about few of your portfolio companies in terms of interesting startups that you have been connected with, you have invested in Southeast Asia, which they are doing very well. Success stories that will really help and inspire many other women, not only in Southeast Asia but also in India.
Sorry, Alok, what was the beginning of that question? Just the beginning part.
I'm saying I would want you to share some of the interesting success stories of founders or investments which you have done. Yeah.
Sure. So probably one of the most exciting businesses that we've got at the moment, and I'm most excited about. Actually, I have a couple, but let me start with Tech Assembly, which is based here in Singapore, and we came in and invested in their former business, which was Gibbs Less Ordinary, and it was an e-commerce platform, a marketplace, and the technology that was available to them through technology providers was insufficient. So we funded the development of their own technology. And what we ended up with was a product, not only that could be used by the marketplace itself, but obviously a product in itself that could be sold as a SaaS solution. And that business has spun off and is most exciting. And I met with the founder only yesterday, actually, and we meet semi-regularly to talk about what's happening, where it's going. And I came away from that conversation yesterday super excited. I think they've done fantastically well, a real success story of COVID. So essentially, it's technology for marketplaces can use subscribe to the service, and because of COVID and the digitalization of everything last year, they really had a great year. So I'm very excited about that business. They're talking to some fantastic big names in the US and in Europe, as well as here in Asia, but really excited for that. And the other success story I would talk about is a few companies we have based in New York, and so a little off our usual sort of geography, but they are all in the space of, we have 3 actually in New York that are all in the space of sexual wellness and female wellness generally. And again, great success stories of our portfolio during 2020, and I think COVID has really advanced things and people's thinking, and perhaps it's because people took a lot of time last year to really reconnect with themselves and their partners, and I think it's been a great catalyst for those businesses.
You rightly said that even though we cannot say that COVID has been good for everyone, but it has accelerated the technology adoption by a decade, if not by 2. Even in India, I can see a lot of SMEs adopting technology, getting most of the processes automized. So I think you rightly said that, and that's happening in India also. In terms of COVID, so what in terms of technology, one is technology wherein we have seen that technology has really been the adoption has been accelerated. But what are other changes which you see which COVID has played positively on overall on the startup and entrepreneurial ecosystem globally and more so in Southeast Asia? Do you see any change in terms of the mindset in COVID times prior to in 2019 and prior to COVID, and what in terms of business models, in terms of how the business needs to be accelerated and scaled. Bit skilling is something which are you still seeing a change in the mindset, not only in the entrepreneurs but also in investors' mindset?
So that's a little hard for me to answer because we only launched during COVID. So it's hard for me to compare pre-COVID when it comes to venture capital investing versus now or during COVID. But I'm seeing, I think that the answer is most likely a lot of changes. But it's pretty tricky for me to give you a, I can hypothesize on that, but I think I wouldn't be able to give you a full credible answer, I'm afraid.
Okay, so my mind, I think what has changed, Tanya, because one is in terms of the investors are very focused on profitability and business and unit economics, and they believe that just burning money into marketing and ads to sign in more customers and users might not be the right way to move forward, because at the end of the day, you need to build a scalable business which can survive all the weather. I think that's one thing which is changing, which I feel. Second is in terms of earlier, a lot of businesses were getting invested at the idea stage. And at the idea stage, the people were ready to invest. Even and institutional investors, I have seen they're ready to invest only on the idea and only on what they can do with that idea. I think now it's getting very, very difficult for someone to raise capital at idea stage. So I think MVP and traction and talking to customers, trying to understand that whether this business model can generate positive cash flow, because positive cash flow is something which has become very paramount now, which to my mind, prior to COVID, investors were little flexible on that. So I think that one change has happened, which I see very regularly now. Investors, they are not even willing to talk to. Most of the investors, if they think that it's just pre-revenue and they don't have the MVP. I think,
Yeah, I think that's probably true. However, I do know a number of investors, much like us at Her Capital. We are definitely focused on very early stage, and I know a number of VCs that have that as a strategy. The other thing that I would say is, you said that that investors are focused very much on profitability. The other angle, though, to think about is that before COVID, I think that when we talked about social impact or diverse managers, and these were all very much a hard sell. And don't get me wrong, it's still sometimes misunderstood. So often people misunderstand what my fund is about, what Her Capital is about, because they see that we're investing into female founders. And so sometimes they immediately assume that that means that we are a not-for-profit, or we're some kind of charitable giving, or we're just not going to make a lot of money. Our fund is very much for profit, and we're investing in businesses that are for profit. However, that said, hyper growth and unicorn hunting is not, for me, the way forward, and it's not what we're searching for at Her Capital. There are a ton of amazing female founders that are building businesses that are moderate growth, sustainable profitability, and doing a great job. Will they ever IPO? No. But do they need to? Not necessarily, probably not. And we're very happy to back businesses like that, especially as we see a huge opportunity, because traditional venture is not backing businesses like that. So it's a great opportunity for us to have access to amazing founders, great businesses, just they look a little different.
I think thanks for bringing that point, Tanya, because we need people like you who understand that all business cannot be unicorn, all business cannot go IPO, and there are different gestation period for different business and different entrepreneurs. And I was about to ask you that when you invest, what is your exit time? But now I think you have answered in a very different way. And it seems that, and I think we need fund and investors like you to create a balance between bit scaling, wherein people just burn, and then they realize after 5 years that they either sell it off, break it down the valuation. And I think valuation game is something which is overplayed globally. And I think we really need investors like you, the ecosystem, to understand that valuation is just a number. At the end of the day, the business needs to be scalable, and business needs to survive and create value, not only for investors, but also for all the stakeholders, which includes entrepreneurs and which includes the society and the ecosystem around that business. I think point very well taken. Nitya Prasad wants to ask in terms of how they can connect with you. Is LinkedIn or website is the best way to do that if they want to send their deck?
I'm just typing my email into the chat right now. Oh, it's there we go.
Okay.
Yeah. I'm extremely active on LinkedIn, so I encourage everyone to link in with me, and that keeps you abreast of what's happening at Her Capital. I've just shared my email with everybody. I'm very happy to receive decks or questions and help wherever we can.
That's great, and I think we will take another question wherein Maria is saying that how could you break it down about what you look in a female founder when you're deciding to invest? Are you looking at execution, or you look at other thought processes and other features that in terms of what exactly is the X factor? I think you answered that in a different way, but if you want to take it up this question.
Yeah. So I liken this to picking a boyfriend or a husband and a partner, should I say. It isn't always you're not always able to accurately articulate what it is. It's some, you know, there are obvious things. So for a founder, you know, we're looking, yes, absolutely outstanding execution. That is very, very important. If we're talking just about the founder rather than the business, which I think is what we're talking about here. So yeah, absolutely outstanding execution. And that might be that they've had a startup before, hasn't always been successful, but I think actually statistically speaking, a founder that's had a failed startup previously is more likely to succeed the second time than a first-time founder. So, so yes, absolutely outstanding execution, you know, diligence and all of those obvious points that we're looking for, and knowing their business, right? The founders that we've backed have always been founders that have known everything, you know, and they make it their business to know everything, because we've come across some amazing female founders in the past, and this is not a reflection on women, this is a reflection on just founders, but you know, you ask them a question, let's say about the finances of the business, and they fall down. I don't know the numbers very well. You've got to know the numbers. You've got to know, you know, and appreciate you've got to have the right people in your team. So you haven't got to be an expert in all these areas. And that's why we have, you know, bigger teams, a CFO and a CTO. But you've got to make it your business to know, you know, you can't run a business successfully and not understand the numbers of your business. However, characteristics of founders. So I think I touched on this earlier, but very much for me, it is about likability and my belief in them to attract and maintain and grow a very strong leadership team for that business. Because when you're running a startup, you're often not paying, especially at the stage we're investing in, you're often not paying, market rate, top rates to your employees. So really people are there because they believe in the business and they believe in you as the founder. So it's very important to me that that founder demonstrates and can show that they have the skills to maintain, attract and retain and grow an amazing team. And do I want to sit on a call with them every week? Because I'll call them up. Yesterday I had an hour-long coffee with one of my founders. If she was a nightmare, I would be like, oh, this is terrible, but she's awesome. And so do I want to do that with you? Do I want to jump into that bed with you and spend all this time, talking and dissecting and helping? And with the founder that I met yesterday, I've been to Hong Kong with her multiple times for pitches and business weekends. I've flown to Hong Kong on my birthday before for her for an event. And that's because I really like her, I really respect her, and I want to be part of that team.
I think thanks for your views. And you rightly said that it's like choosing your boyfriend or your husband when you are really investing at an initial stage, because we are choosing the founder and not the business at most of the times at the initial stage. Reason being that we don't have enough data to prove the business. We don't know whether other investors will come in and invest. So it's like we are choosing someone in dark, and that's what we do when we choose our boyfriend or a husband. And I think and that also makes life more difficult for investors who are investing at the initial stage, because they need to focus on the main part, which is the founder. I think with this, I'm done. I don't have any questions, Tanya. And you have already shared your email, so many people will get in touch with you. We are already live on Facebook. And again, I would thank you for taking out time in the first week of a new year. I know it's always crazy in the first week. And also in terms of sharing your views, sharing your thought process, sharing your thesis, and also your vision and objectivities in terms of what you want to do with this fund. And I wish you all the best, because I can understand and I can feel that you are doing something which is so important. When women are 51% of the population, they should at least and be more women in the leadership, and we want to see more women as entrepreneurs and more women who are able to raise capital, who are part of the leadership team. So I think that's a great cause which you are which you are actually helping and trying to help more women. And I will love to get in touch with you. And if I'm traveling to Singapore, and I hope I will be able to do soon, I will get in touch with you. And let's see how we can work together, because I see a lot of synergy in this. And I hope, and I again wish you all the best for your fund and your vision, which is great.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it. And thank you everyone for joining.
Thanks, Tanya.
Thank you.
Thanks everyone. Yeah, bye.